Well, hey everybody, we're back. Sorry about that. I had a major computer crash. I probably was trying to do too much, but hopefully you were able to at least listen to the majority of the testifiers. The hearing is over now. It ended probably close to 12:30. I think those committees run about 2 hours, and so there probably was a couple more testifiers. I wasn't able to see it because my computer was completely frozen, but I recommend that you go back and review that and see those people that did testify. I think the last one we were listening to, we got to hear from Sheriff Keith Swank, Sheriff Mark, I think it's Kreider from Walla Walla. Keith Swank is the sheriff from Pierce County, and we got to hear from Sheriff John Knowles. And then I think we were listening to a person named Derek. I didn't get his last name, Waddington maybe, from Washington Cities. Actually, I have it on the testifying list. Let's see if Derek Nunnally is his name. And there were other people that had testified as well. And anyway, so sorry about the computer glitches, technological challenges. That's kind of part of the world we live in nowadays. And as I learn this program better and figure out what my abilities are to do on it, and maybe what pushes my system over the top, hopefully we'll get better at this. But I wanted you to, number one, know the legislation that is being considered. So we'll wait to hear. This was the public hearing on Senate Bill 5974. There was other things, obviously, in the bill. We listened to Senator Lovick, who was the main sponsor of the bill. So let's go back and let's review this bill a little bit, and so we can kind of look at the different components, like we were doing earlier before the testimony started, so you can kind of get a little more information. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let me close some other things here just to make sure that hopefully my computer doesn't crash again. So hopefully you are seeing my screen now. In just a second, maybe that will show the ledge.wa.gov. Oh, there we go. I need to add it to the stage. That helps. Okay. So, and then we've just typed in 5974 and it pulls up the bill page. So again, here is the um, bill and the name of the bill. And we'll say it again since this is part two and it's on a different video. 5974 Senate bills, 5974. So that means it's starting in the Senate. This bill modernizes and strengthening laws concerning sheriffs, police chiefs, town marshals, law enforcement agency volunteers, youth cadets, specially commissioned officers, and police matrons. So the sponsors, and you heard from the main sponsor at the very beginning to kind of describe the bill, was Lovick. And if you don't know who these people are, then you can click on this and you can find out that this is Senator Lovick, John Lovick. He's from District 44. If you don't know where that is, you can click on that and you can see the area, whoopsie, if I don't press too quickly, that he is from. So Snohomish, Mill Creek, kind of area right in there. So let's go back. It also will tell you what the other state District 44 legislators are, who they are. And then you can also click in there and you can find out who yours are. The other sponsors of this bill are Dingra, who is that chair for that committee, as you saw, as Senator Monica Dingra. I apologize if I'm not saying her name right. And then it goes on. I don't know if any of them are Republican. So far, 3 are Democrat. Frame is Democrat. Nobles is Democrat. Peterson, we know Jamie Peterson is the Senate Majority Leader. He's a Democrat. Solomon is a Democrat. Stanford is a Democrat. Trudeau is one of the committee members. She was there. She's a Democrat. And Valdez, Democrat. And Senator Willman, we know, is Democrat. She is the Education Committee chair. So those are the sponsors. So there's not one Republican sponsor of this bill. And again, we'll kind of review this. You can go to the documents and let's see what the doc. Okay, it just goes below. And you can go to the video. So it just take you down a little farther. So this tells you kind of the history and what it's scheduled to do. So it was scheduled for public hearing on the 15th, which was today at 10:30. You can see it's already been scheduled for executive session in the Senate Committee on Law and Justice at 10:30 on January 22nd. So that is, I would think, next Tuesday. Is that right? Or next Thursday? And that is when they are planning on voting on it, whether to vote it out of committee or not. So we still have time to communicate to our legislators, if you haven't done so, to communicate especially to the committee members, who are the only ones that will be voting on it at this point in the committee. And then, making sure that your voice has been heard. If you haven't signed in already, if you didn't send in a written testimony, if you don't know who the committee members are, let's see here. I don't remember. I don't think you can get to it from here, but let's take a look and see. Here's the committee documents, Senate Law and Justice. Yeah, so that just goes through the different bills. So I'm going to click on a different tab here, and we're going to share this tab instead. So hopefully you all can see that. So I'm going to walk you through how we can find out who the committee members are. ledge.wa.gov. We're going to click on that, and I had a little hard time finding this year. It's kind of feels like the stuff has moved around. So we can go down to the different committees. Here's the Senate Law and Justice. So I'm going to click on that. Here's the members and staff. And so that will help you know who are the members of each of these committees. And these are the different members of the committees on Law and Justice, the Senate Law and Justice, that is had the hearing today on this sheriff's bill, if you will. You can see that we have Jeff Holey, who is the Republican from the 6th District here in Spokane County, who is the ranking member. That means they are the highest ranking minority leader or minority member on this committee. That is what a ranking member means. And then Phil Fortunato, who is a Republican as well. And then we have Nikki Torres, who you heard from, who's from District 15. And then Keith Wagner is also on there. He's a longtime senator from District 39. So you can get a hold of these people. You can email them. Everybody's email is their first name dot their last name at ledge.wa.gov. And we recommend you emailing all of the members and even all of the members of the Senate, including your legislators. Okay, so that's just a little bit on what you can find about the committee. And then, so let's go back to the bill. We're back on the bill page. We're looking at 5974. So if you still want to submit written testimony, you can do that. You click on this page or on this tab. And if you were prior to the 10:30 deadline, you could have also signed up to testify as well, or sign in pro or con. But that closed at least at the beginning of the meeting at 10:30. It might have closed even a little bit before then. I'm not clear on that. So you could still submit written written testimony, you want to tell everybody which bill you are wanting to communicate about. Now, this is actually probably what made my computer glitch, quite honestly, was this, see who signed in for this agenda item. And so I pulled it up on my other computer, and it's pages and pages. It's 672 pages. So it lists out the people that signed up to testify. Not everybody that signed up got to speak because of the limited amount of time. And so you get to see that. And then you also get to see the people that registered their votes, registered their positions. And I don't have the software that can figure out the numbers very quick, but people sign in either pro or con or other. And I believe it was the Association of Washington Cities that signed in other. And that's what we were listening to, I think, when my computer glitched out. But mostly it's pro and con. And like I said, there's 672 pages of this in pretty fine print. And so I know we're thousands and thousands of people that signed in pro or con, and I do not have the software to figure those numbers out. Now, I have a feeling the caucus, the Senate Republican caucus, or maybe somebody that can figure this out much quicker than I can, will come out with how many people signed in and how many people signed in pro, how many people signed in con, and we'll get those numbers. And that's really important because that is a signal. It is a lever to our legislators. It doesn't mean they go by it, fortunately, as we've seen in prior years, but it is, a significant tell from the people. And so we will definitely watch that to see if some other information comes out about that. So that's this page. And there's other things you can do here. Like I showed you before, it talks about, the different things you can do and how to do that. You can also, I believe, let's see here. So yeah, they already have this one scheduled, right? For the 22nd at 10:30. So let's see if it's on there. It's not on there yet. They haven't put it on there yet. Had they put that on there, then you could also testify or sign in your position for the executive session that is scheduled for 5974. But that bill has not, even though it's on the calendar, they don't have it on the agenda item in this screen yet. So something to watch for. Hopefully, by listening to the testifiers of that bill, you were able to get a good feel of what this bill includes and what it does not. Even though the representative or Senator Lovick, that is the sponsor of the bill, tried to say that you couldn't be decertified, a sheriff couldn't be decertified just because they're not liked or they're not popular. You heard from our sheriffs, our elected officials, the experts in the field about the damage that this bill could do and that they could be decertified for a number of reasons and basically deem uncertifiable or yes, and therefore be taken down based on what the state says. And that is not of the people, by the people, for the people. We locally elect our sheriffs at a county level for a reason. And we need to preserve that with everything we can do. So that is why I am bringing this to you today. Also of note, I want you to pay attention to the organizations that signed up to testify pro and the organizations that signed up to testify against. To me, that is very telling. And especially, I'm not saying any of these organizations have committed any kind of fraud or anything like that, but I do find it fascinating that the organizations that usually are signing up pro or testifying pro for some of what I deem as these bad bills that keep going through our legislature and getting approved by the Democrats, who are the majority. And I have a lot of friends that are Democrats, so I'm not putting any kind of blame or, saying they're bad people. I'm not at all. I have so many friends that are Democrats that are great people. And a lot of these legislators are too, but they tend to vote very differently than I would vote. And it is concerning. So these organizations that sign up pro for bills like this, which our sheriffs are against, tend to be these, nonprofit organizations. And I think it is to take note. So if we just look at the list, and I can't pull it up without probably crashing my computer, of the people that signed up to testify, and I'm just going to talk about the ones that put in the org. There were other people that didn't put in an organization. So I'm just going to talk about the ones that signed up to testify that put in the organization. So we had Bob Lidenhovis, who signed up con. So he was against, and he put in the organization We the People Retired Veteran. Eric Pratt said America, and he is other. Sheriff Walla Walla County, Mark Kreider, who we heard, he signed up con. Marcus Carter, who is from the Puget Sound Patriots, he signed up con. I'm going to skip the ones that don't have an organization. Spokane County Sheriff John Knowles, he signed up con. The Association of Washington Cities, Derek Nunnally, he signed up other, as we heard. Jeff Dever, he was from the Washington County of Police and Sheriffs. He signed up other. We didn't get to hear his testimony. He might have been the one that was on deck, so you might be able to go back and listen to that testimony. We heard from Sheriff Keith Schwenk, who is the Pierce County Sheriff, and he signed up con. We didn't get to hear, but Dale Wagner, who is the Adams County Sheriff, he signed up con. Amanda McKinney, Yakima County Commissioner, she signed up con. Joe Crite, I believe is how you say his last name, Grant County Sheriff, he signed up con. Now we get into some of these organizations, and we heard from some of these. In fact, I think Malu Chavez was the first one to testify pro. She's from the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. Karen PC is from the League of Women Voters of Washington. They both signed in pro and testified pro. Lyle Quazin from the Tacoma Pierce County Black Collective. And you heard him mention all the different organizations that were part of that. He signed in pro. Kristen Eng, Faith Action Network, she signed in pro or testified pro. Alexander Bjorn Esteves, from the Sexual Violence Law Center, signed in pro. Mike McIntyre from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, he signed in pro. So there's another half a sheet of people. And so on that last one, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, we dived into this. In fact, I have a video of this from last year, almost about a year ago. I did a video with Watchdog Law last year about diving into these different NGOs and looking at their money streams. And we found that the Alliance for Gun Responsibility received money from our government. And then they also donated money to our Democrats, legislators, and they are against these, or they are for these bad bills. They consistently seem to be against these bills that chip away at our constitutional freedoms. And so it's very interesting to kind of note these organizations and to dig a little bit. And we've got some great diggers that like to follow the money and find out who these are. Again, they're not all nefarious, or maybe not even mostly nefarious. Maybe there's, just a little bit of nefarious action, but it's worth checking into. And so that's always interesting to me. I love looking at who is testifying pro, who is testifying con for these bills, and then, kind of investigating who are these organizations? How are they getting funded? What is their CEO or their executive director getting paid? And yeah, where's their revenues based out of? And then what are their expenditures as well? And then do they give to uh, our legislators that are hearing these bills and that are deciding on these bills? Do they give money? Do they give campaign contributions? And if you don't know about that, you can go to the pdc.wa and you can check into that. So let's see here. Do we want to do that today? We might do that another day. And there's videos where we've done that. So again, look for that video in my history, and you can find that, or send me a comment and I'll help you find that. So let's go back to talking about 5974 some more. Here's the available documents. So here's the original bill. We didn't have time to click on this before. So let's look at this. Here's the Senate Bill 5974 as it is presented. So this is what was being heard on today. Now, when you go to executive session next week, as we were hearing earlier on the other bills, there's probably going to be some amendments proposed. And when they propose those amendments, they will show the changes to this document that is being considered. So it gets kind of wonky, it gets a little bit in the weeds, but it's very important to follow because, changing one word can change the whole meaning of a section and even the bill. So you definitely want to watch those. And you'll see the Republicans a lot of times try to propose amendments to try to soften the effects of some of these bad bills. And oftentimes they haven't been successful, but that is how you can follow along. So this is how many pages? It's quite a few pages. So it's a lot to read through and look into. Where there's a strikeout, like you see here, that's the current law on the books, and where there is underlined is the addition to what is on the books, I believe. Let's see here. Senate bill, yep, an act. So, and a new section. Okay. So that new section would be new. So you can look at that. That's helpful. Again, a tool that a lot of us use is we will link that website with that bill, that full bill, and we will feed it into an AI and ask it to summarize for us, the main points. Sometimes it picks up on the points that others have picked up on, and sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes it gets it wrong. So I'm not saying to go by it 100%, but it is a tool to help kind of speed up the process of understanding what is in these bills. And then the committee staff usually has this bill report also as kind of a summarization of what the bill is and isn't. Before the committee, I didn't see this there, but I noticed that they had it when they presented this bill. And so it is kind of a nice little tool to have, as it does give the brief description. And it will go into a little bit of the background. It will go into who it's including. So it itemizes the Criminal Justice Training Commission, the peace officers, the police chiefs and marshals, the sheriffs, the volunteers, the youth cadets, and the specially commissioned officers. So it's saying that, this bill is going to affect these different groups of people in this different way. And then it kind of summarizes the bills, the things of the bill. So let's see if we can see anything up here. Let's just read this background investigation part. Let's see here. So it says, in case of appointment to the office of chief of police, marshal, or sheriff, the background investigation must be completed no earlier than 6 months before the date of appointment. Okay, so this is the appointing authority is responsible for any fees. So there's also costs that are involved here, and it is not clear. They didn't have a cost effect yet when they had the hearing, they said. but it's also unclear of who that cost is going to go on to. The fiscal note has been requested right here. You can see that. But they don't know what it is yet, and they don't know who it is to. So that's a little bit more information on this bill. So I wish we had some were able to do some Q&A here, so I could get some questions from you all. And or if you do have questions, go ahead and comment on the chat, and hopefully I can see it. Sometimes I don't get to see them all, and hopefully I can answer your questions. But that is the bill. It is a very concerning bill. And we want to continue to watch this very closely. So it does have a hearing next week for executive session to move it out of committee. And that's a very important deadline we want to pay attention to. All right, let me see if I can pull up the sheriff's statement that he made. Sheriff John Knowles, as you heard him testify in the committee hearing. I posted it on my Facebook page. I'm not sure if I got it onto my, let's see here. I'm not sure I got it onto my X yet, but let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is it. So let me share this screen. All right, this is from the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. And I am going to have to make this much bigger so I can read it. This is from Sheriff John Knowles. So he released this the other day to the public. I'm writing to provide feedback to the most recent proposed version of House Bill 1399. So basically what he's saying is this kind of came to the committee, came to the legislators last year in the form of House Bill 1399. And it is now the Senate version 5974, which is what we just heard, concerning modernizing, harmonizing, and clarifying laws concerning sheriffs, chiefs, marshals, and police matrons. A significant element of this bill proposes that an unelected state board have the authority to remove an elected official, especially or specifically an elected sheriff, from office. This creates a significant challenge to the elected office of sheriff, and this letter encompasses the views, concerns, and opinions of both the Washington State Sheriff's Association, WSSSA, and the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, WASPC, or WASPC. The WASA and WASPC have stated clearly that they steadfastly oppose House Bill 1399 and Senate Bill 5364 and its proposed rewrite for consideration of the 2026 session. The 2026 legislative session will be the third consecutive year with a legislative effort to modernize the office of sheriff, and I've yet to hear an identified problem statement. In a recent meeting with prime sponsors of Senate Bill 5364 and House Bill 1399, the previous versions, the closest thing to an identifiable problem statement was that the bill sought to provide accountability and that the bill was the final piece of the 2021 legislators' police reform efforts. The proposed legislation lacks a clear problem statement. In attempts to make sweeping changes under the guise of minor adjustments, including bullet point imposing educational requirements for candidates, bullet point redefining the jurisdiction and duties of sheriffs, and regulating volunteer involvement. Elected sheriffs are at least as accountable as other elected officials, including legislators, yet no legislation has been proposed to hold any other elected officials, quote, accountable. As for the bill being the final piece of the 2021 legislators' reform efforts, it should be noted that each year since 2021, legislators have continued to advance, quote, police reform measures that failed in 2021. This proposal seeks to place the will of the legislature over the will of the voters. There is a saying in the law enforcement profession that every police has a name behind it. Every policy has a name behind it. In other words, some officer somewhere did something that the agency didn't want to happen, and a policy was developed to prevent that in the future. From our perspective, House Bill or Senate Bill 5974 has the same elements. There's a name behind most of the provisions. Here, however, the names are of elected sheriffs who have said things or expressed opinions that many, including many other sheriffs, do not like. However, not liking speech or opinions should not lead to overturning the will of the voters. 100%. Knowles nails this. While I acknowledge that the Washington Constitution gives the legislature the authority to prescribe the duties of county elected officers, including sheriffs, this authority must be done by general and uniform laws for all county officials and does not authorize the legislature to veto the will of the voters. It also does not give the legislative branch the authority to set requirements to run for sheriff, nor to single out an individual county office. And then he quotes the, let's see if I can get it, the Washington State Constitution, Section 5 in county government. Where it states that. Let's see if there's more here. All right. The separation of powers remains a core component of both the United States and Washington constitutions and should be honored. I find it compelling that Article 1, Section 1 of the Washington Constitution declares that all political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. Senate Bill 5974 is a clear attempt by legislators to curate the slate of candidates voters can elect. It is a direct and blatant attempt by the legislative branch of the government to attempt to assert control over the executive branch and remove the power of choice from the people. Simply put, the office of sheriff belongs to the people of each county, not the legislature. The elected office of sheriff is unique in its dual role, both a law enforcement leader and a representative of the people. This dual responsibility demands professionalism, integrity, and transparency. However, it is critical to recognize that the sheriffs are already directly accountable to the voters who elect them. Any effort to impose additional legislative control over this office must respect the will of the electorate and avoid undermining democratic principles. All right. Voter accountability is already in place. Sheriffs, like legislators, city council members, county treasurers, and other elected officials are subject to recall, re-election, and public scrutiny. The voters of each jurisdiction own the office of the sheriff, not the legislature. Recent history demonstrates that voters are both willing and entirely capable of holding sheriffs accountable. Jerry Hatcher from Benton County was removed from office just 4 years ago following public outcry and a recall by the voters. Adam Fortney, Snohomish County, faced significant public criticism and controversy and was not reelected when he ran for a second term. John Snazza, Thurston County, was challenged for reelection after several terms and defeated at the ballot box by a challenger. These examples underscore the effectiveness of democracy. The legislature should not negate the voters' role in determining who leads their law enforcement agencies. Professional standards are already met. Every elected sheriff in Washington has either entered office as a certified peace officer or obtained certification immediately upon assuming the role. To our knowledge, the last sheriff who was not certified was Pierce County Sheriff Paul Pastor, a widely respected leader who was reelected several times by Pierce County voters. Furthermore, no sheriff in recent memory has been decertified and remained in office. This reflects a strong culture of professionalism and adherence to standards within the office. So John, Sheriff Knowles is getting to the point of the reason supposedly behind this effort to be able to decertify your local elected sheriffs by the state, by this bill, from this board of citizens, right? And he goes on here, and it's very good. And you can find this on my Facebook post and under the sheriff's office post um, on Facebook. So anyway, it goes on here, and you can kind of gather the rest. But it is very, very important, this legislation and this bill. Oh, Sue Willis. Thank you, Sue. The sound and volume from TVW was horrible, made it frustrating. Okay, thanks for that, Sue. So you definitely want to go in, and I'll work on that. I'll thank you for that feedback, because I have no idea what you're hearing. I'll go back and review it as well. But you'll want to go on and go to that webpage, ledge.wa.gov, put in the bill 5974, and then go to the videos, and you'll be able to go review that. You're going to fast forward. It's going to show that whole hearing, that whole session, committee session. So remember, that included the executive session on those other 4 bills. And then there was an additional 4 bills that had a public hearing, which included 5974, but it was the last one. So I think you can probably fast forward through at least an hour of that video if you want to get right to 5974. And they might have tools to do that on TVW. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've tried to do it. They might have tabs or a identifier, a marker for each of those different bills. So apologize if the video was not great or the sound wasn't great. It's, again, something new I was trying. And again, I wanted to bring this to you because we talk about these things, but I don't know until you see it for yourself and you hear it for yourself and you get to hear what people are saying and you get to hear both sides of the argument. I think that really helps bring it home and solidifies what is being contemplated here by our legislators. I think it's also revealing in their comments and their questions. And so you will hear more comments from the panel that is on that committee next week in the executive session. If you noticed, when we were listening in on the executive session part earlier on, before the hearing on this bill there was much more comments by the committee members, and it was very revealing what side of the position they were taking. And, also too, what they're thinking is where are they coming from? Are they hearing from their citizens? And when we were listening to the unmasking of police officers bill, 5855, one of the committee members said, she'd heard from tons of community members the concerns around this, and she even stated, and 14,000 people had signed in for this, and so you can hear that's where they're coming from. So it gives you a little bit more context. So anyway, let's see here. It is 1:15, and thank you for hanging in there with me and being here today. If you are just tuning in, there is part 1. I didn't label it as part 1 because I didn't know it was going to be part 1, but there's an earlier video that I attempted to share the hearing for this sheriff's bill, the ability to decertify locally elected sheriffs, and the hearing of the committee that happened today, the public hearing on that. And we did get to hear from multiple county sheriffs from across the state and other citizens. And then I had some computer problems and my computer completely crashed. And so we didn't get to hear the last few, but hopefully this was something that was of value to you. Again, make sure to give me comments about the good, the bad, the ugly. Was it helpful? Again, Sue, thanks for sharing with me that the sound and volume wasn't great. And that's something I can work on and try to figure out how to do better for next time. And if this was helpful to you to hear this or not, it's always good feedback. So, again, I just want to remind everybody that we are in a spiritual battle. And Brian and I talked about this on Monday. If you didn't get to hear that or listen in on that podcast on Monday, definitely go back and listen to that. We just kind of did a brief little quick podcast interview since that was the first session or the first day of this session. And stuff is happening so fast, and it is easy not to get this. It's easy to get discouraged with these bad bills and the things that are being presented, and that you know the Democrats have a majority and in the House and the Senate, and it seems like our voice isn't heard, but we can't give up. We can't give up, and God is faithful. I believe that with everything in me. I don't know why it happens the way it happens. I don't know why these bills that feels like bad bills get passed, but we can't stop engaging. We've got to stay in the fight, and we got to keep engaging, and we got to keep seeking wisdom from God. And we need to continue to pray for all of our legislators, for all of our elected officials, that they have a change of heart, that they are able to hear the voice and the wisdom from God to be able to do the right thing by us citizens. So continue to pray for our elected officials, pray for each other. And I just encourage you to stay in the fight. I know it can be discouraging, but there's wonderful things here. We have wonderful families. We have wonderful people. We have wonderful, beautiful environment here in our state, and enjoy that. So blessings to you all. And until next time, I'm MJ Bolt, your host of UnBolted. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.